On the day Caleb turned 21, his father, standing before 200 guests, proclaimed that his brother, Damon, would be the heir to their multi-million-dollar empire. These words, uttered with a champagne flute in hand, landed like a bolt from the blue. Caleb was stripped of everything, declared a mistake. The light from the crystal chandelier seemed to dim, reflecting the darkness that settled in the young man's soul. The eyes of those present, filled with pity and malicious glee, were fixed on him. The champagne glass suddenly felt like an unbearable burden. "To Damon Sterling," his father's voice boomed, "to the son who will lead Sterling Automotive Group into the future." Applause echoed through the hall. Damon, clad in a flawless Armani suit, offered a practiced smile to everyone, as if he had rehearsed this triumph his entire life. Continuing his speech, his father produced a red Ferrari keychain, a symbol of future victories, and tossed it to his brother, who caught the keys with effortless grace. Damon had always been flawless, never making a mistake, unlike Caleb, who seemed destined for failure. "Speech! Speech!" cried Harrison Blackwood, an influential banker and friend of his father's. Everyone was eager to hear from the chosen heir. Damon raised his glass, and the light glinted off his wedding ring. "I promise to honor the Sterling legacy and triple our fortune within 5 years. That is the Sterling way, the path to victory." Applause erupted with renewed vigor. Vanessa, Caleb's girlfriend, pulled away from him, her gaze avoiding his, as if poverty were contagious. "Caleb, I'm sorry, but I have to think about my future," she whispered, then headed toward Damon to congratulate him. The scene was so symbolic it caused physical pain. Caleb, as if in a trance, moved through the crowd. Conversation ceased mid-sentence as he passed. People who had known him since childhood now looked right through him, as if he were already a ghost. "Richard made the right choice," Judge Coleman muttered to his wife. "The boy didn't have the Sterling fire," someone else added. The October air burned his lungs with its chill. In the parking lot, a new Ferrari gleamed, its engine purring like a contented predator. At that moment, a woman in her 60s, wearing an expensive coat, stood by the fountain. Her sharp, intelligent eyes were fixed on Caleb. "Caleb Sterling, it seems the party is in full swing, and the winner is polishing his crown." She didn't smile, but pulled a red wax-sealed envelope from her coat. "Your mother asked me to give this to you on your 21st birthday. She knew this day would come." The envelope was warm, as if it had been waiting for years. Caleb's mother, Vivian Sterling, had died when he was 12, but she had always been prescient. The woman approached, and Caleb recognized the familiar scent of expensive perfume. "Read this, and then decide if you want to remain a mistake or become a solution." Suddenly, she turned, as if remembering something else. "Your mother asked me to tell you one more thing. She said you would understand when the time was right." Her gaze lingered on me, and for a moment, I thought I saw a reflection of my mother's soul in her eyes. "Show them who you really are." With those words, the stranger disappeared into the dark interior of a black Mercedes parked in the shadows. The license plate, Aldridge 1, burned into my memory like a lightning strike. Aldridge. My mother's maiden name, like a ghost from the past my father never mentioned. Relatives, like shadows who never appeared at our doorstep. Grandparents whose faces remained a mystery to me. I stood frozen on the driveway of my father's mansion, holding the envelope, which suddenly felt like it contained my entire future. Behind me, through the panoramic windows, I could see the family celebration continuing. Damon, with his arm around our father's shoulders, laughed at something, probably planning further conquests in the automotive world. They could never have imagined that my mother, a quiet and gentle woman who died of cancer without ever raising her voice, had been playing her own long game. They had no idea that the mistake they so easily discarded was about to become their biggest problem. I broke the wax seal and saw my mother's familiar handwriting, clear and precise, as if the letter had been written yesterday. "My dearest Caleb, if you are reading these lines, it means your father has finally shown his true colors. It is time to learn the truth about the Sterling Empire and your true inheritance. Everything you've been told is a lie, everything except my love for you. On the USB drive, you will find the evidence. Gerald Whitman of Whitman & Associates has been waiting for your call for 9 years. His number is below. Call him tonight. Do not wait until morning. Your father will try to strip you of everything before dawn. I'm sorry I could not protect you while I was alive, but I have made sure to protect you now. Show them that it is the quiet people who change this world. With love, always and forever, Mom." My hands no longer trembled. For the first time in my 21 years, they were perfectly still. A mistake. For the first time that evening, a smile touched my face. The mistake was theirs. The Sterling dynasty was built not on luck or love, but on carefully calculated moves and the crushing of anyone who dared to stand in its way. My grandfather Tobias always said this, teaching Damon to play chess in the library while I watched them from the doorway. I was never invited to join the game. Our empire began 70 years ago with a small repair shop in downtown Detroit. My grandfather fixed cars with his bare hands, slept in the back room of the office, and ate canned beans until he saved enough to buy the adjacent building. By the time my father Richard took the reins, we already had 12 dealerships across Michigan. But regional success wasn't enough for my father. He dreamed of an empire. "Comfort is the enemy of greatness," he'd proclaim at dinner, carving his steak with surgical precision. Remember that, Damon. Always Damon and never me. My brother was 3 years older and 30 years better prepared for the life my father had planned for him. Harvard Business School, internships at Fortune 500 companies, marriage to Bethany Cromwell, whose father was a member of the Senate Banking Committee. Every step Damon took was strategic, as if he were playing chess with life itself, always calculating moves in advance. And what about me? I attended community college for only 2 semesters before dropping out. Not because I was a poor student, but because I mastered engineering courses with such ease that professors suspected me of cheating. "No one understands quantum mechanics intuitively the way you do," Professor Chen declared, holding my flawless exam paper. "Who did you cheat from?" When I couldn't name a source because none existed, they made my life hell. My father's response when I returned home was, "Maybe you're just not meant for college, Caleb. Not all of us can be Damons." So the narrator took a position in the family business's back office, tasked with modernizing outdated inventory systems stuck in the 90s. In a short 6 months, he developed innovative software that not only tracked every detail, but also predicted demand patterns, saving the company $400,000 annually. However, his father's reaction was restrained. "That's what we pay you for." His mother, on the other hand, was a completely different person. Vivian Sterling, née Aldridge, possessed a rare gift. While remaining inconspicuous, she managed to be a pivotal figure in any situation. She anticipated problems before they became apparent to others. When his father faced stubborn resistance from Japanese manufacturers unwilling to negotiate, one phone call from his mother resolved the issue, securing exclusive distribution rights for 3 prestigious brands for the company. When asked by his father how she did it, she modestly replied, "I politely asked," omitting the fact that her father had once saved the CEO's father during the Korean War. The Aldridge family had connections spanning generations, old money and old favors. It was power that didn't need to be flaunted. His mother passed away when the narrator was just 12. Pancreatic cancer was the diagnosis, only 6 weeks from discovery to funeral. Their last significant conversation took place in her hospital room, her hand, cold and weak, lying in his. "Caleb, you have my mind," she whispered. "Your father will never appreciate it because he only values what is obvious. But still, waters run deep, remember that." "Mom, you're scaring me," he replied. "I'm preparing you," she countered. "Those are different things." She squeezed his hand with unexpected strength and added, "When you turn 21, everything will become clear. Until then, survive, observe, learn, and never let them see how much you understand." After her passing, the house became a kind of mausoleum dedicated to Damon's achievements. His trophies lined the mantelpiece, photographs adorned the walls, and prestigious enrollment diplomas were displayed in his father's study. The narrator became invisible, handling accounting, repairing computers, and solving problems no one else wanted to tackle. Uncle Preston, his father's younger brother, supported him however he could. Unlike his brother, he chose art school over business school, which was long considered a family disappointment until his advertising agency began developing campaigns for presidential candidates. "Your father is a stubborn ass," Preston once said after several whiskeys on Thanksgiving. "But he's a successful ass, which makes him even more dangerous. You're smarter than all of us, kid. One day he'll realize it. And if not, you'll show him the sterling way." Even Grandpa Tobias at 93, whose speech was mostly incoherent most days, sometimes showed flashes of clarity that pierced deep. "You're like her," he said last Christmas, grabbing the narrator's wrist with his bony hands. "Like Vivian. You have those Aldrich eyes. Richard hates those eyes." Family dinners became meticulously staged performances where the narrator invariably forgot his lines. Damon discussed mergers and acquisitions, and Bethany offered her practiced smile to everyone. His father nodded approvingly, occasionally adding his war stories from the business world. The narrator sat silently, mentally calculating the exact profit margins they spoke of, but knowing his opinion was of no interest to anyone. The Sterling Empire, comprising 47 dealerships in 5 states and selling everything from economy cars to Lamborghinis, generated $85 million in annual revenue. This was all his father had ever dreamed of, and in his opinion, the narrator deserved none of it. The birthday party, which should have been his celebration, had from the outset turned into something else entirely. The Sterling estate had been transformed into a coronation hall. Ice sculptures of luxury cars adorned every corner, and a string quartet played in the main foyer. The guest list resembled a Forbes directory, listing the most influential figures in the automotive industry. At the heart of the lavish 21st birthday party, a drama worthy of Shakespeare's pen unfolded. "Here's the man of the hour," proclaimed Harrison Blackwood, his voice hoarse from 3 whiskeys. 21 years old. Your father must have something grand planned." An ominous premonition hung in his words. Everyone present seemed to be aware of the impending event. Sympathetic glances, awkward silences as the protagonist approached a conversation, nervous glances at phones, all indicated that this celebration would be a prelude to tragedy, not a triumph. At the center of attention, as always, was his father, Richard Sterling. At 62, he maintained an authoritative posture and a magnetic presence. His silver hair, slicked back, broad shoulders, and cold smile that didn't reach his eyes exuded an aura of power and control. He conversed casually with the mayor, 2 federal judges, and the president of the State Bankers Association. Noticing his son, he imperiously called out, "Caleb, come here." The word son sounded foreign in his mouth, as if he were speaking an unfamiliar language. As Caleb approached, he felt the crowd part, forming a stage for the upcoming spectacle. "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard began, tapping his champagne glass. A dead silence fell. 21 years ago, I made a decision that profoundly changed my life. I had another son. The pause was deliberate, theatrically and cruelly calculated. Some decisions define us, while others serve as a reminder to be cautious. He cast a direct, piercing gaze at Caleb. Caleb has worked in the company for 3 years, in our back office, and that experience taught me a valuable lesson. Caleb's stomach dropped. Vanessa, standing nearby, squeezed his hand, but it was more a gesture of self-preservation than support. Not everyone is meant to be a leader. Not everyone possesses the sterling fire, and that's okay. He raised his glass. "Therefore, I proudly announce that Damon will immediately assume the role of CEO of Sterling Automotive Group." A burst of jubilation shook the walls. Champagne corks flew into the air like cannon shots. Guests rushed to congratulate Damon, who accepted the accolades with the casual confidence of a man who had been waiting for this moment his entire life. "But, Dad," Caleb began, but his voice was drowned out by the general noise. His father turned to him, and this time a genuine icy smirk flickered in his eyes. "You get nothing, Caleb. You were always a mistake. A momentary weakness when your mother convinced me we needed another child, but at least Damon came first." His father's words rained down on him like a hail of blows. Those around didn't even try to hide their curiosity. It was blood in the water, and they had all turned into merciless sharks. "Richard, perhaps this conversation should continue in private," Uncle Preston interjected, appearing beside Caleb. "No, Preston, the boy needs to hear it publicly. He needs to know his place." His father pulled the Ferrari keys from his pocket. The keychain gleamed in the light like a ruby. "Damon, your first acquisition as CEO." He tossed the keys into the air, and they described a perfect arc. The crowd erupted in applause, as if watching a work of art. Damon, of course, caught the keys and raised them above his head like a trophy. "Thank you, Dad. I promise to double the company's value within 5 years." "Triple it!" someone from the crowd shouted. "Then triple it!" Damon laughed. "Why not? We're Sterlings." Vanessa's hand vanished from Caleb's. Turning, he saw her heading towards Damon, her Versace heels tapping a sharp rhythm on the marble floor, as if counting down the seconds to betrayal. "Congratulations, Damon," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You'll be brilliant." She didn't even turn back to Caleb. Aunt Lorraine, his father's sister, who managed a hedge fund in New York, whispered to her husband loudly enough for Caleb to hear. "Finally, Richard is getting rid of the dead weight. Smart move." Even Grandpa Tobias, confined to a wheelchair by the fireplace, muttered, "There should have been only one son, only Damon." Caleb stood in the center of his own party, feeling both invisible and an outcast. People moved around him as if he were a piece of furniture, engrossed in discussions about Damon's expansion plans, his brilliant strategic mind. "The inventory system Caleb developed saved us almost $500,000, Uncle Preston said loudly, trying to salvage the situation. "An ape could handle inventory," his father retorted. "Leaders build empires, followers count cars." In response, laughter erupted, sharp and painful, like the sound of breaking glass. Caleb pushed through the crowd, each step a struggle, as if he were sinking in quicksand. Valets at the entrance clustered around the Ferrari, photographing it, as if partaking in his brother's success. From behind him, his father's words drifted, "To the future of Sterling Automotive, to Damon, to the winners." Cheers accompanied Caleb into a night full of disappointment and pain. Night enveloped everything in impenetrable darkness. By the fountain, a female figure emerged, as if sculpted from the very shadows. She wore a dark blue cashmere coat, the price of which likely exceeded that of a used Honda. Her neatly styled silver hair and eyes, the color of morning green in a mirror, revealed her as a relative. "Aldridge eyes," Grandpa Tobias used to say. "Caleb Sterling," she said, her voice intelligent and reserved, like someone who understood the power of words to wound if used skillfully. "If you're here for the celebration, the winner is already inside, polishing his crown." Without a hint of a smile, she pulled a thick, matte envelope from her coat, sealed with red wax bearing a family crest he had only seen once on his mother's jewelry box. "Your mother asked me to give this to you on your coming of age. She foresaw this moment." The envelope held warmth, as if it had been kept close to a body for a long time. His mother had passed away when Caleb was barely 12. Vivian Sterling was a multifaceted person, but by no means careless. Agnes approached, and he caught the familiar scent of Chanel No. 5, his mother's perfume. "Read this, and then decide whether to remain a mistake or become a solution." "Who are you?" Caleb asked. "Agnes Aldridge, your mother's cousin, executor of her true will." She headed towards a black Mercedes hidden in the shadows. "She also asked me to tell you something else. She said you would understand when the time was right. Show them who you really are." The Mercedes vanished into the night, leaving Caleb with the envelope, which suddenly felt like the burden of the whole world. He sat on the edge of the fountain and broke the seal. His mother's handwriting struck him like a physical touch. "My dearest Caleb, if you are reading these lines, it means your father has finally shown his true colors. It is time to learn the truth about the Sterling Empire and your true inheritance. Everything you've been told is a lie except my love for you. Sterling Automotive Group was built not by your father, but by me. Every innovation that took us from regional to national scale, every patent that gave us an advantage, every connection that opened international horizons, all of it is thanks to the Aldridge family. Your father is merely a skilled salesman who married a genius and claimed her achievements as his own. The hybrid engine that brought us millions was my design, created while I was studying at MIT. The connections with Japanese manufacturers, my father's military contacts, the land on which our flagship dealership stands, all Aldridge property for 6 generations. I remained silent out of love for him and wished for you to have a father worthy of respect. But I also kept records. Everything is documented, every patent in my name, every property held in Aldrich family trusts, every innovation with precise timestamps and notarization. The USB drive contains all of it. Gerald Whitman of Whitman and Associates has been waiting for your call for 9 years. He has the original documents. His number is below. Call him today. Do not wait until morning. Your father will try to strip you of everything by dawn. I'm sorry I could not protect you while I was alive, but I've made sure to protect you now. Quiet people change the world. Show them that genius isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. With love, always your mother. Caleb's hands trembled as he dialed the number. It rang once. Whitman and Associates, Gerald speaking. I've been expecting your call, Mr. Sterling. How did you know it was me? Caleb asked, astonished. Your mother said you would call at this exact time, on this day. Vivian was never wrong. His voice was friendly but confident. Can you meet me in my office in an hour? We have important legal matters. It's almost midnight. Your mother paid for my services 24 hours a day for a week. She anticipated your father would act on your birthday and try to transfer assets immediately. We have until the market opens on Monday morning to implement her contingency plan. The drive downtown took half an hour. Caleb listened to the recordings from the USB drive through the car's audio system. His mother's voice filled the Honda's cabin, recorded just weeks before her passing. She detailed everything. Every patent registered under her maiden name, every property held in Aldrich trusts, every document proving that the Sterling Empire was built on a foundation laid by the Aldrich family. In the penthouse of the Cromwell building, where Gerald Whitman's office was located, a tense anticipation hung in the air. In the spacious conference room, designed for 24 people, 4 lawyers were gathered, and the table was piled with boxes of documents, foreshadowing a momentous event. Mr. Sterling, Whitman said, rising to greet him, your mother was the most remarkable woman I've ever met. She foresaw this day and anticipated every possible scenario. And what exactly am I seeing here? Sterling inquired. Your inheritance, specifically the controlling stake in Sterling Automotive Group, amounting to 51%. These shares are held in the Aldrich Family Trust and transfer into your ownership today. Your father owns 30% of the shares, and Damon owns nothing and never has. That's absurd. My father built this company, Sterling exclaimed. Gerald smiled sadly. Your father created only an illusion, a myth. Your mother built the real empire, and she ensured that at the right moment it would pass to the son who inherited her intellect, not his father's cruelty. Monday morning brought an atmosphere of impending resolution. The Sterling Automotive Group boardroom was festively decorated with fresh flowers and champagne chilled in ice buckets. Damon, in his finest suit, stood at the head of the table, engrossed in rehearsing his first speech as CEO, while his father watched him with pride bordering on adoration. All board members were present: Harrison Blackwood, Judge Coleman, Senator Cromwell, and 6 other influential industry figures who had contributed to building this empire. They enthusiastically received Damon's words about cost-cutting, well aware that he was referring to Caleb. Exactly at 9 o'clock, Caleb entered the room, accompanied by Gerald Whitman and 3 federal attorneys. Silence instantly fell. What the hell does this mean? His father's face contorted in astonishment. Security! Damon roared, but the guards remained motionless. Gerald had given them instructions in the lobby. Gentlemen, Gerald began, deliberately calmly placing his briefcase on the table, I'm here to inform you of a change in ownership of Sterling Automotive Group. Mr. Caleb Sterling is now the majority shareholder, effective immediately. Such silence descended upon the room that you could hear the champagne bubbles popping. This is utter nonsense. His father leapt from his seat, his chair scraping loudly backward. I own this company. I built it from the ground up. In fact, Mr. Sterling, you own only 30%, Gerald countered, pulling a thick stack of documents from his briefcase. Your wife, Vivian Sterling, née Aldridge, owned 51% of the shares through trusts established before your marriage. According to her will, these shares transfer to Caleb on his 21st birthday. Vivian never owned any shares. I would know that, his father insisted. Really? Caleb spoke for the first time, approaching the presentation screen. Did you know about the Aldridge Motors patent she obtained in 1998? It's for a hybrid engine design that generated $40 million in revenue. Caleb pressed a button on the remote, and the screen filled with patent documents, issued under his mother's maiden name. Did you know that our flagship dealership is located on land owned by the Aldridge family, leased to Sterling Automotive for a symbolic $1 a year, with renewal solely at the discretion of the Aldridge estate? Another click. Land deeds, dated 1892, appeared on the screen. And did you know that all the key innovations that allowed us to transition from regional leaders to a national presence were based on her dissertation, which she defended at MIT under the name V. Aldridge? The screen displayed the dissertation with blueprints that perfectly matched the designs the company had been using for years. "This is a forgery." Damon finally found his voice. "You fabricated this evidence." Mr. Damon Sterling, one of the federal attorneys, stepped forward. "We have thoroughly verified every document. In fact, we are here to investigate your father's activities for possible intellectual property theft and fraud. Ms. Vivian Sterling filed sealed complaints with our office 9 years ago to be opened on her son Caleb's 21st birthday." Caleb's. His father, as if struck down, sank into his chair, his face contorted in pain. "Vivian would never do this. She loved me." Desperation laced his voice. "She did love you." I didn't argue, pulling out my mother's last letter from my briefcase like a death sentence. "She loved you enough to keep silent during her lifetime, but her love for her sons was stronger. Do you want to hear what she wrote about you?" "Please, no," his father pleaded, his voice trembling like an autumn leaf in the wind. But I was unyielding. "Richard will destroy Caleb, just as his father destroyed Thomas. That is the Sterling way. One son a builder, the other a destroyer. I will not allow this tragedy to repeat. Caleb inherited my mind, my capacity for innovation, my ability to foresee the future. He is capable of building something greater than Richard ever could, but only if I protect him from his father's fear of being surpassed." "She knew?" Uncle Preston whispered in astonishment, words seemingly caught in his throat. "About Uncle Thomas?" I turned to Preston, my gaze filled with bitterness. "She knew everything. How Grandpa Tobias drove his younger son to suicide by constantly comparing him to our father. How Father repeated that scenario with Damon and me. In this family, there always has to be a winner and a loser. That's their cruel game." "So what now?" Harrison Blackwood interjected, his voice cautious. "Do you intend to destroy everything?" "No, I intend to build something better." I addressed the board of directors, my voice resolute. "Damon will retain his position as head of traditional operations. He excels at his duties, and I have no intention of penalizing competence. Father will be offered a generous retirement package and a consulting role, should he desire it. Uncle Preston will become the chief operating officer." "And you?" Senator Cromwell inquired, his gaze fixed on me. "I will focus on Mother's patents in the research and development division. We are going electric, a full transition within 5 years. Sterling electric vehicles. We will revolutionize the industry, just as Mom did 20 years ago, but this time the Aldridges will receive the credit." "You can't do this," his father whispered, his face ashen. "I already have." The board's vote was unanimous by proxy. It turns out, when you hold the controlling stake and federal fraud investigators are in the boardroom, people become surprisingly cooperative. Gerald placed the final document before his father. "Your signature, Mr. Sterling, confirming your consent to the transition." His father's hand trembled as he signed, as if acknowledging defeat. "Vivian played the long game," he muttered. "No, Dad," I countered, taking the pen from his shaking fingers. "She played the only game that mattered. She protected her son from his father, as she promised." 3 years have passed since that memorable Monday when I walked into the boardroom armed with the truth and my mother's genius. Sterling Electric Vehicles is now valued at $500 million, with manufacturing facilities in Michigan, Tennessee, and California. We've gone from zero to the 4th largest EV manufacturer in North America. And we achieved this by utilizing my mother's designs, which have finally been given their due. Damon successfully leads the traditional dealership division. And here's an unexpected twist no one could have predicted. He's thriving. Without the constant pressure of competing with me for our father's approval, without the heavy burden of being the only son who mattered, he has unlocked his potential and become the businessman he was always meant to be. His division's profits have soared by 40%, Last week, we had dinner at the same restaurant where he once met clients while I waited for him in the car. You know what's funny? He said, twirling his wedding ring on his finger. I spent my whole life trying to be like Dad, and you didn't. And somehow you achieved more success. We both achieved success, Damon. That's what Mom wanted. She planned everything, every step. She knew Dad would publicly betray me. She knew you would take the Ferrari keys. She even knew Vanessa would leave me at that party. Speaking of Vanessa, Damon began, she came back. I cut him off, knowing what he wanted to say. 6 months after the takeover, she showed up at my office with apologies and promises, assuring me she had always believed in me. And what did you tell her? Damon asked. I told her that faith can't be turned on and off depending on the size of someone's bank account. Then I introduced her to my assistant and asked him to escort her out. Damon laughed heartily. Mom would have loved that. Last spring, I married Elna Whitman. We met during those long legal consultations as she helped her father sort through documents, and I learned how thoroughly my mother had protected me. Elna jokes that our first date was the dismantling of my father's empire over coffee and depositions. But she's wrong. We didn't dismantle anything. We built something new from the blueprints my mother left behind. My father took his forced retirement harder than anyone could have imagined. For 6 months, he refused to speak to me. Then one day, he appeared in my office with a box of my mother's belongings he had kept in his safe. I found more patents, he said quietly, as if divulging a great secret. Blueprints for solar charging stations. She made them back in 1995. That day was dedicated to studying her notes, revealing groundbreaking ideas 2 decades ahead of their time. Father couldn't hold back tears when a diary entry was discovered, revealing the reasons for her silence. Richard must rule, but Caleb is the future. I can give them both what they need, with enough patience. She loved us both, my father said, with different loves, for different reasons, but with equal intensity. Now, he shares his knowledge of business ethics at the university, transforming court-mandated community service into a true calling. At a conference, he introduced me as his son, the visionary CEO who had led Sterling Automotive out of stagnation, without a trace of irony or bitterness, just a statement of fact. Uncle Preston, given free rein, manages daily operations with unprecedented enthusiasm. He has transformed car dealerships into interactive spaces where customers don't just buy cars, but immerse themselves in the world of future transportation. Since he took office, sales have soared by 60%. But the most unexpected surprise was Agnes Aldridge, the woman who handed me that fateful envelope. She turned out to be not just my mother's cousin and executor, but the guardian of the Aldridge legacy, a fortune accumulated over generations and preserving secrets that made the Sterling Empire seem like a modest lemonade stand. Your mother was a rebel, Agnes confessed over tea at the Aldridge estate, a mansion that dwarfed my father's home. She chose to build her future with your father rather than inherit ours. But she always knew how to protect what was most precious. While digitizing the archives, I discovered another letter from my mother, addressed to Damon and me, to be opened only after all matters were settled. My dear sons, if you are reading this together, then my plan has succeeded. You have both found your place without destroying each other. The Sterling curse, the animosity between fathers and sons, and between brothers, ends with you. Build together what I could not build alone. Love each other as I loved you, boundlessly, but differently, for each of you needed something unique. The mistake was not in Caleb, but in the belief that only one son could succeed. Prove me right. With love, Mom. That letter is now framed, hanging in the conference room where we weekly plan the future of Sterling Automotive. The mistake wasn't in me, but in underestimating a mother's love and a quiet son's ability to show strength when pushed to the wall. Some empires are built on conquest, others on redemption. But the greatest are built on the patient designs of those who loved enough to save from afar. Remember, success is the best revenge, but family is the only legacy that holds true value.